Hello and welcome to the 45 Minutes of Heaven we call the D1Baseball Podcast. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney, player, owner, coach of your fabulous Roon Dogs. Tonight's episode brought to us by your good friends at S2 Cognition. S2 Cognition delivers a revolutionary approach to helping athletes understand how in-game decisions impact their performance from youth levels all the way to the pros. Get yourself an assessment and find out what kind of swing decisions you are making. Speaking of decisions like your weekly picks when you have those 10 series and how well do you do in those weekly picks. But we're not here to point fingers tonight. We're also brought to us by our good friends at Pitch Logic, the system used by players, coaches, scouts, and instructors at all levels of play, from youth leagues to the big leagues. The easy-to-use and affordable technology makes the platform accessible to every player at every level. All the metrics and features used at the highest level. See pitchlogic.com for more information. This evening, Thursday evening, preview episode, I am joined by the great Zebby Barrels, Aaron J. Fitt, and the great owner, operator of the JoJo Joes, Joseph J. Healy. Gentlemen, good evening. Neither of you are in first place in our weekly picks competition, but hopefully that doesn't dampen your mood. How are you doing this evening?
Rose, I couldn't be more delighted for you and your success. You know, you're one of the nicest people I know. You've been a long-suffering franchise. You haven't won anything really since you joined this whole company. I don't think you've won anything. And so, I'm happy for you. Really. I'm genuinely happy that you're currently leading.
Oh, that's great. Joe, what say you about this?
First of all, Runes, I would like to add to your list. I think you shorted yourself when you were saying, owner, manager, player of the fabulous Roon Dogs. I think you should also add director of baseball operations. I think you're skipping a title there.
I'm like the owner and the GM. I like the whole shop, and I'll put myself in the
Jerry
dang
Jones
ball game.
Yeah.
Fitzy, friend of the program, the great Mike Monaco.
Yeah.
He had a potential name for your team. Yeah, it's fine. I liked it actually. It proves that he's a listener. He said, "How about the Fighting Diasporas?" How do you feel about that?
We can workshop it.
It's a lot of syllables.
It's might be too many syllables, but Coach Monaco, one of the all-time greats. So
Yes.
If he's going to suggest something, I'm going to take it seriously. We're going to take this to the board, and we'll debate it.
Yeah.
What about
Go ahead, Joe.
I say this because Mike Monaco is a big hockey guy. Shout out to Mike Monaco doing hockey games for ESPN. What about the hockey podcast Spittin' Chicklets? What if your team was Spittin' Fitlets?
That's got potential.
That's got potential.
No, it's bad. No, it's bad. You don't have to pretend like that was good. It came up off the top of the dome. You guys don't have to
I think it's fun, Joe. I'm not going to lie to you.
It's catchy. Yeah. Like it's got a little sizzle to it. Yeah. I don't hate it at all. So, but anyway, yeah, hopefully the Spittin' Fitlets have a better week this week. And
we've been stuck in the mud, Coach Runes. We got nothing going on with the picks. Like I'm lost. I'm just totally lost right now.
Yeah. What do you do when you're kind of lost at sea like this, Fitzy?
I'm pressing. I feel like I'm a little bit like Nick Kurtz. I know I'm a superstar. I know I'm good, but I'm a little lost right now. I just, I'm out of sorts.
Yeah. Are you haunted by the words of Dennis Green that you are what your record says you are? Or are we trying to?
You know what, Runes? If you want to crowd.
Oh, I think you broke the internet, Fitzy. That was awesome. Oh goodness, Joe, how's your club? You're kind of like clipping along there in the middle of the table.
Yeah, we're doing okay. I'm tied with Etheridge Farms, and I feel like as long as I'm drafting off of him, I'm doing okay. So I'm not worried about it. I think we're kind of in third or fourth right now, but we're only a couple games back. Had a tough week 2 weeks ago. I literally brought up the rear 2 weeks ago and went 3-7 or something.
Yeah.
That was a tough week, but before that, I was leading the way actually.
Is there going to be any type of sorry to cut you off, Joe? Any type of investigation of the Large Donkey organization? Like, how is Steven Schock just top of the table? He's smarter than he lets on. Is he dumb like a fox, Joe?
Let's be honest. This is his character is what it is, but the man did get into Virginia and has a graduate degree from Virginia. So, he's got a little bit going on there, but also I'm not above accusing him of using both the cream and the clear as a little bit of a callback there. He's on that new Balco.
Yeah,
as
he's
far
got
as
his whole operation's got antler spray written all over it. I mean,
That's right. That's
call
exactly right.
Fitt. Yeah, let's go. We're on to it. All right, boys. Let's. By the way, on the side here, I have Houston at BYU. BYU's park is just drop dead gorgeous. BYU's third baseman Easton Jones is the son of Mitch Jones, who played for your beloved Sun Devils in 2000, broke Bob Horner's record with 27 home runs, and
Wow.
Easton hit an opposite field home run in the first inning. It's so cool. Really, really cool. That doesn't make me feel old. That makes me feel joy. I love
Good.
that.
Good Lord, it makes me feel old, Runes.
Yeah.
That's
Did
nuts.
you weren't there for Mitch Jones yet, right, Fitzy? You were just
I was
not
in
coming on the
college.
scene yet. There you
Yeah, I
go.
was not on the scene, but I was in college, and so it doesn't feel like that should be happening. Like sons of people that I was.
Yeah.
Anyway,
In fairness, Mitch was married when he played for us, so he got a quick start on that whole thing.
fair enough.
So
All right.
yeah, all good. Boys, let's do this. This weekend, the Sun Belt and the SEC, the Fun Belt, if you will, they start their 10 weeks of Hades, right? Like the gauntlet where there's no breaks for nothing. Like you can't take a break for finals or car washes or brownie sales. Like you're doing 10 weeks of the regular season. And so let's preview this. I want to be pretty heavily focused on the SEC. We're going to each pick a couple series and just be brief, couple players, maybe a player from each team, and just an overall idea for that series. We'll do the same in the ACC because that league is also has a lot of chicken on the bone this week. We'll be a little bit more brief in the Big 12, the Pac-12, and we'll do some wild card action too. So Josephus, since you are the at last check, you are the czar of SEC baseball. Could you kick us off with an SEC series, please?
Absolutely. First of all, I'd like to. We are a constitutional democracy at SEC Extra, so I'm not really comfortable with the czar title, but yes, whatever the equivalent is there.
Could you Google constitutional democracy for me while you're talking? Because I'm going to need to.
Yeah, we've got a bicameral system. So I'm going to go, and this will help knock out a question we've actually got in our in our chat already here on YouTube. Brad Baker asked, does LSU have enough offense to repeat? So this would not have been the series I would have chosen right off the bat. However, since we had a question about it, I'll bring up LSU going to Mississippi State. I think it's an opportunity to learn some things about both teams. For one, look, we can have a debate about whether we think it's going to last or what it means or what the end game is here, but Mississippi State's weekend pitching has been better, full stop. Mm-hmm. At this point last year, we already knew, they've got problems. Now, monkey wrench in that, Nate Dome not starting this weekend. I don't like the sound of that. I don't like the way his last outing ended, but let's set that aside for a second. Cal Steven and Jurangelo Sainja have been very good. They've also gotten great bullpen work from some guys that they're just going to need. You know, Brooks Augers is one of them. Nolan Stevens, a freshman, is one of them. Tyler Davis is another guy. And normally you'd say, okay, you're going against LSU. That's a tough task. And it is. LSU's still talented. But with the way LSU has kind of struggled to get totally fully online offensively, I think there's an opportunity there for Mississippi State at home to at least take a step up and prove that, okay, this isn't just that we've played, mostly the Sisters of the Poor the first 4 weeks of the season. But because the LSU offense isn't quite totally there, I do think they do have a puncher's chance to prove that. On the flip side, though, I feel even more strongly about LSU's pitching. Luke Holman and Gage Jump have been great, and Thatcher Hurd had his best outing of the year last weekend. In Mississippi State's offense, I can't believe I'm saying this, I feel better about their pitching staff than I do their lineup right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, Dakota Jordan has been excellent. But outside of that, they've had a hard time. David Mershon's having a pretty nice year, but Hunter Hines has 1 home run. Monty Larry's been okay, but not any better than he's not. His numbers are worse than they were last year so far. So if you're LSU's pitching staff, I do think you feel pretty good about that matchup. So I say all that to say the State could feel pretty good about its pitching. And if you told them before the year, hey, opening weekend of SEC play against LSU, your pitching staff's going to look great and you're going to feel pretty good about your rotation, they'll take that 10 times out of 10, and it still might end up with them losing this series at home because LSU's pitching is just that much better. My apologies, Runes. I broke the format there. I did not pick a player and a thing, but I feel like I choose the player you'd like to choose out of that if you're listening to this. Pretend like I just highlighted that player.
All good. All good. That was excellent information and two very high-profile teams.
Yeah.
Fitzy, call the ball. Who would you like to talk about next in the SEC?
Well, first off, I am making my SEC debut in the state of Mississippi. I'm going to double up.
Ooh,
I got Oxford on Friday and at least the start of the Saturday game, and then we're going to kind of play it by ear. I mean, if the Saturday game appears one-sided, I may bolt for Starkville. They got a 1:00 start, I think, in Oxford, to 4 in Starkville. But I'm going to finish the weekend in Starkville. We got LSU down there, and that's going to be a fascinating series. Can't wait to see Durangelo. Do we know what they're going to do with their rotation, Joe? Have they announced that, like without Dome?
I got it right here.
Yes.
Sierra. How do you say it, Joe? Sierra?
Sierra, yeah.
Steven, and then Durangelo.
Okay. Oh, that's perfect.
Joe.
I love it.
Yep.
I mean, and that's certainly something I'm excited about on Sunday. That'll be a great one. But I'm really interested in this South Carolina Ole Miss series too. We're sticking in the SEC, right, Runes? Is that our format?
Yes, please. Yep.
Okay. I've been kind of I think publicly skeptical a little bit of the South Carolina pitching staff heading into the year. Love their lineup. Really think it's an elite lineup. Didn't know what to think of the pitching staff. And, it's been pretty good, guys. Like it's and I, again, they had the one series against Clemson, which they lost, but they didn't pitch terribly. They, a couple of 5 to 4 games. And other than that, I mean, their pitching's been dominant. I mean, it's not been a great schedule, but it's been dominant. And so I think the Ole Miss offense is good. I like what they did to revamp that thing. And I'm really intrigued to see that matchup, I guess, the South Carolina pitching staff versus the Ole Miss offense. I mean, I certainly am. I'm high on Eli Jones, and I know he I think seems like he's become a real Friday guy. But let's see it in SEC play now. This is kind of the next step. And I know they really like Dylan Eskew, and he's been good too. So, those will be really interesting matchups there the first couple of days. And then for Ole Miss, it's just a matter of which JT Quinn, I guess, is going to show up. That's part of it. Joe, do you have the rotation for that one? Do you know when he's going to throw?
JT Quinn is not.
Okay.
They've pulled it for the second week in a row. They're skipping him, so it's going to be Gunnar Dennis, Liam Doyle, and then Saunier on Sunday.
Yeah, that's interesting. And we'll see. I'm intrigued by that also because I like their offense more, I guess, than the rotation. It feels like they're kind of looking for answers. I mean, I think Liam Doyle has a chance. We'll see. I mean, is there enough strike throwing there? Is there enough command? Certainly, there's enough stuff from the left side. So. Anyway, I'm all over the place here too, guys, but I think that's super intriguing. I think we'll learn a lot about those two teams.
It's so funny in the SEC. Oh, go ahead, Joe. Finish your thought on this series. Go for it.
Yeah, quickly on Liam Doyle. I mean, Mike Bianco, when they put him in the rotation before last weekend, kind of threw the gauntlet down in a certain way. And his quote, something, and I saw Chase Parham mention this on social media, was kind of more or less like, "This is what we brought him here to do." So it's just kind of like, hey, we at some point we got to figure out what we got here. So, and I know Aaron, when you saw him he didn't have a great fall. His lead up to the season just wasn't optimal necessarily, but it was okay last week. So we'll see. I mean, to your point, he certainly got stuff. But not JT Quinn not being good for them right out of the chute has been a real hindrance.
I just think the SEC is so funny because the non-conference schedule is like cocktail hour. Everybody's friends, have a drink, very low key, no problems. And then now is like this musical chairs punishable by death for the next 10 weeks, right? Like it is basically, there's going to be X number of spots and you better hope there's a chair for you. It's really incredible. I'm going to pick Kentucky versus Georgia. By the way, shout out to Ben Beatty, who's the SID for baseball. Once SEC play starts, he sends out an email every week with the pitching probables. Now, the coaches are not always cooperative. It doesn't take us very long to get to TBA, right? Like that, we know that rotation is coming at you. But like for right now, it's so cool. And I would implore any SID in any league that, wants to holler about, how much attention the SEC gets. Like there's an example of by the way, just to be clear, the SIDs don't holler about that. The fans do. But and I know not everybody is staffed as well as the SEC, but I'm telling you, I don't know if you guys agree, for people that cover the game, something like that is incredible Ben also sends out the box scores for the SEC games every single night, even including non-conference. It's just awesome. So anyway, I'm doing Kentucky and Georgia. The two players, both teams have had very strong non-conference schedules or slates. Georgia really hasn't played great competition outside of 2 wins over Georgia Tech. Kentucky's series loss to Kennesaw State definitely has my attention. And the 2 losses were not close. I'm going to give you 2 players. Slate Alford for Georgia has been outstanding, and I'm really curious to see what he looks like in SEC play. Georgia's going to need someone to step up because people are going to stop pitching to Charlie Condon. That's, I think, fairly, I would assume that would happen. And then for Kentucky, I'm not going to pick a player. I'm going to pick their rotation because I just think if you were betting on Kentucky coming into the year, I think you were betting on Mason Moore and Travis Smith being outstanding. And Smith has struggled some. It's almost a 6 ERA. Mason Moore's numbers are good. He does have some walks. And Dominic Neiman, the transfer from Central Connecticut State, out before last week, he had been their best starter. So anyway, it's Georgia at Kentucky, and I just think there's a little bit of a costume reveal here.
Yeah. Two nuggets there. One, Georgia leads the country in home runs. I don't think anybody, and sure, Condon has 13 of them, but still, that's a lot of home runs for the rest of the roster. So that's interesting. And the thing on Kentucky, I was thinking about this today. I mean, the start of their season, they lost the series to Kennesaw State, and that's not great. But overall, they've won most of their games. But I was reminded last year of how many things went their way, which is not to say lucky. That's not what I'm getting at. But they were extremely healthy last year. Like all their guys were healthy basically the entire year. Their transfers, the ones they hit on, they really hit on them big. They also kind of knew who their 9 was every single day. This year, they've not been as healthy. Grant Smith has missed time. Ryan Waldschmidt has missed time. I'm sure there's somebody else I'm missing. And they they fielded at an elite level last year, and they've been fine this year, but just fine. And so the little one error here, one error there ends up making a big difference. And injuries have been a part of that because they've had to shuffle pieces around. And so I say all that to say that their margin was pretty small last year, and they kind of maximized what they had. And so it's just a reminder of how like little bitty cracks in a foundation here and there, when you get into SEC play, really get exacerbated. And so I'll kind of be fascinated to see how Kentucky deals with just being not quite in as much of an optimal situation as they were last year.
Yep. Well said. Joe, take another series. Pick another one for us.
Sticking with the SEC?
Yes, please. Yeah, we'll go one more each in the SEC.
Okay, got it. Okay, I'm going to go A&M in Florida. That's kind of the obvious one on the table. We'll have double duty there. Mark Etheridge and Stephen Schock there covering that series. Obviously, they do very different things. So, but two different takes at it. I'll go player Ryan Prager. Has yet to allow a run. And he's an interesting guy. I mean, some of that is, like we said, for every single player we've mentioned, some of it's schedule induced, but I mean, his numbers are insane. It's like a 40-3 strikeout to walk. It's a 115 opponent batting average, something along those lines. He's basically a 2-pitch guy this year. It's basically fastball slider. He uses a slider more than his fastball, but he gets a lot of whiff on both. I mean, the whiff on the fastball is like 41%, which is astronomically high. The average on a fastball whiff rate is what, like low 20s, right around 20, something like that. And he's doubling that. And the slider whiff is like 50%. Now that's not going to stand against SEC competition. Those numbers will come down. But he doesn't have like the most electric stuff out there. So I am interested to see against a Florida offense that can mash. Like they're physical. You can miss their bats a little bit, but there is a lot of physicality there when they do make contact. So I'll kind of be interested to see how he does on Friday. And on the Florida side, I'll just give you Fisher and Peterson, because how they deal with the A&M offense is going to be fascinating. And I this may be a hot take, although maybe not, because I've heard others say this, but I don't think Fisher and Peterson have been as bad as the ERAs look. You look at the peripheral numbers, like Peterson's batting average against is less than 200. Like of the hits he's given up, like 3 or 4 of them have left the ballpark. And like that again is not a sustainable rate. Like that number will come down. Now he's walked a few more than you'd like. So there's that. But with Fisher, his strikeout to walk is like 27-4. So he's not walking guys. He's just getting hit a little bit. And so to me, that seems a little bit like he's just kind of been unlucky with the sequencing of the hits he's given up. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say they've been great. Obviously, they've had their struggles, but I don't think this is like the apocalyptic situation that in some cases we felt it has been. And I think that's expressed in the fact that Sully's still running the same rotation out there, like same order, same folks, just running it back out there, because I think he thinks, and I think I'd agree with him, that eventually some of this like data stuff, this data noise will eventually just kind of flatten out as time goes on.
And, Cade Fisher is just he's not really their Friday night guy, right? Like, that's a choice they're making because Cags, in their mind, needs to pitch on Sundays because of the two-way element, and he is their first baseman. And you're right, though. Fisher's numbers are nuts, Joe. It's 27 strikeouts in 16 innings, but also people are hitting 310 against him. Like, that doesn't jive. Like, is his stuff hittable, or is it bat missing stuff? Like, the statistics are very confusing there.
Yeah. I mean, Fisher has the worst stuff of the three and starts on Friday. It's just kind of but that just speaks to, because his stuff isn't bad. Let's be clear. Like, it's not like he's up there slop tossing it in the mid to high 80s, but you just compare it to Peterson and Cags, which have top of the scale stuff, but yeah, I think ultimately the Florida rotation, it needs to be better. Yes. But I don't think it's a panic situation by any stretch.
I'm going to give myself some 643 homework. I need to get on 643, and I'm curious how Cags does against left-handed pitching. I don't know if you guys have ever looked that up, because he didn't look amazing against the left-handers from Florida State during the week, but I think part of that is Cags put so many pitches in play that he's just going to look like whatever pitch you make, you actually get to choose how he looks. Because if you throw a nasty pitch, he'll swing at it. If you throw a bad pitch, he will hit it, into South Georgia. Fitzy, what do you want to go with for a second SEC series?
Runes, I'm going to go with Tennessee at Alabama. Fun, top 25 matchup here. Kind of a sneaky, like you're going to be talking about A&M Florida. That's the marquee series here, but Tennessee, Alabama, not far behind for me. I really think Alabama is the real deal. And I think their team all the way around. I mean, they did so well remaking that lineup, better than I even expected. And I was high on Alabama heading into the years. I think I was the highest on our staff on this team, but just the way that Gage Miller and TJ McCants and Ian Petrutz and Evan Slate, all those guys have fit in. I mean, it's been seamless. And so I think they're much more offensive than I thought they would be. I guess Ben Hess would be, if you're looking for a name. He didn't have a great outing last week against Lipscomb, that kind of high scoring. I don't know if it was a wind thing or what. I don't know, Joe, what the deal was there, but yeah, okay. But I mean, he's the real deal, and I'm very excited to see him against that Tennessee offense. And for Tennessee, the name I'm going to give you it's a name that's been around, a guy that we know, but Christian Moore has been awesome. And he's always been a really nice player he hit 17 home runs last year. He, hit over 300. I mean, he's been like a guy, he's drawn a lot of walks in his career, but he also, his strikeout rate is way down, and they've got him leading off. And I think he struck out the first 2 years, 24%. This year's 12.7%. He's got more walks than strikeouts. And I love that. I love that maturation. And yet he's still hitting for power. He's hitting for more power than ever, slugging higher than ever. And so for me, that's just a guy that's very talented and has taken kind of that next level jump. And so that's just something that's caught my eye for Tennessee. I think Tennessee's really good. They've won. I mean, they only lost one game all year, right? Like they've won 17 in a row or something. I mean, it's been impressive. And so great test for both these two teams this weekend.
Feels a little bit like last year with Tennessee, where they lost 2 of 3 that opening weekend, including that game, where they got shut down by Arizona. And then we kind of all thought, oh no, what's wrong with Tennessee? And then they got hot through the rest of non-conference play. Of course, then the start of SEC play didn't go great. So we'll have to kind of see if that's similar, if that's different. But I suspect it's going to be different, because I like you, Aaron. I really like this team. I gave the take on Highway to Hoover that this might be the deepest Tennessee lineup that Tony Vitello's had. Just because it's it's like 9 guys that are hitting better than 300. They probably have 13 or 14 guys they'd like to play. Like they haven't had to play Hunter Inslee or Reese Chapman as much. And I think they would like to play them more, but they just, when you have a guy like Dean Curley stepping up, Robin Villeneuve stepping up, guys that you didn't necessarily look at as, cornerstone type guys that have just stepped up the way they have. There's no space for anybody else really.
Yeah.
I worry for Alabama this weekend, boys. Like I feel that there might be a reckoning coming for them because and first of all, because I'm with you, I think Tennessee is that good. Like I think this is a legit national championship contender. But before the season, if I had told you that the opening week rotation for Alabama was going to be Ben Hess, then Greg Ferrone, and then Hagan Banks, I would have taken a breath for a second. Like that's not what was advertised. And maybe, Aiden Moses is going to be really good in the pen.
Yes.
But I think this is going to be a critical week. I'm worried that Alabama could get run off the field a little bit here. We'll see.
I'm gonna say this in Greg Ferrone's defense because I saw him in Frisco and I like what I saw. I mean, it's and don't forget, like this was a guy Louisville was very excited to get 2 years ago. He was put up absurd video game numbers in JUCO ball. He didn't have a great year last year, but he still struck out guys at Louisville. He missed bats. It's a big physical lefty who's pretty easy, 92, 94 downhill. Can spin it. He's got field of pitch too. I think he's good. I mean, if that's your Saturday guy, okay. I mean, he looked the part of an SEC Saturday guy to me. So,
yeah.
And Hagan Banks is a big time, talent that they're excited about. And I know that there's maybe the experience piece isn't there as much, but I do think I've always thought that Moza probably could be a totally dynamic shutdown bullpen piece for Alabama. I kind of think that's how he fits best. And so maybe this is not such a bad thing.
Yeah. And Hess is a star. Like I'm all in on Ben Hess. So the series could go that way too, right? Ben Hess just shoves on Friday night and Alabama wins game 1. And next thing you know, it's like, oh, okay, maybe we are good enough. And so, that one, that's a really good choice. That's really fascinating. So I'm not going to pick Missouri at Arkansas. I'm just not going to pick that one. I mean, Arkansas, I think the only thing intriguing there is Arkansas's offense, what that looks like. I mean, we all think Missouri is totally in rebuild mode this year. Like that's in fairness to Carrick Jackson and that staff. Like to put any expectations on this year, I think is grossly unfair. So that leaves me with Vandy hosting Auburn. And the 2 players I'm going to give you is I'm going to give you Carter Holton, because remember, this is a dude that his last 3 starts of his freshman year in the SEC did not give up a run. 3 straight weeks of not giving up a run in the SEC as a true freshman. Now he's got a 5 ERA, and I think that's really related to 1 outing. I'm not totally sure, but Carter Holton has the ability to be the best pitcher in this league. And I know that's a high bar to clear, but he's that good when he's on it. And so I'm really curious to see which version of him shows up. I looked at Auburn's numbers, and they have like 7 dudes with over 1,000 OPS. Like it's amazing how sneaky awesome Auburn is. Now, the player that's intriguing to me is Ike Irish. He's already got 6 home runs and 25 RBIs, and he's actually catching most of the innings, unless I've whiffed on that. And so I'm just, now it's for real. Now it's the SEC. And I mean, here's the thing for me. If Ike Irish is going to do this, catch every inning and be the offensive player that he is, that's a top 10 pick, is it not, next year? Like,
and he's caught 12 of their 16 games, it looks like. So he's been the guy back there. And I agree. Yes. Like if he's, and I haven't seen Auburn actually, like I hadn't even watched their games yet. And so, except for a little bit on Jacksonville, I streamed some of those, but like curious what you thought in Jacksonville. Like it's, I always thought he had a chance to catch. I mean, he could throw. He's a big guy, maybe there's some stiffness, but like, what did you think about the defense?
Yeah. The thing about catcher defense is, to an untrained eye, and I'll always make sure people understand that I'm not a scout or any sort of evaluator, but you notice it when it's really bad, and it wasn't that. There were a couple balls that got to the backstop that probably should have been stopped in like in a perfect world, with like just little technique stuff like a stab instead of getting over in front of it, or gets over in front of it in time, but he's not really over the ball. So it kind of caroms to the side as opposed to dies in front of him. But no, and the throwing is fine. He's a good athlete. Like he's not a stiff. So I'm with you. Like, I don't think anybody's out here trying to sell him as an elite defender, but it's not by no stretch of the imagination do they need to hide him in any way, or should a club, an MLB organization, feel bashful about taking him and putting him behind the plate?
Yep. I don't, I'll just put a bow on the SEC with this. I don't find the Auburn Vandy series to be, I won't be making any final decisions after this series. I think the best version of both clubs is like an Omaha team, and it's going to take us. Like, I'm not ready to make a decision like that after one weekend. I really like both teams. I'm just really curious to see how it plays out. These are two very good teams that, ironically haven't been as famous so far this year as maybe some other teams. But Fitzy, you want to take? Oh, go ahead, Joe.
One note on Auburn too. Joseph Gonzalez is going to try to throw again this weekend. He was skipped last weekend. He threw a bullpen Monday, and Butch said that went pretty well. If you want to read a little bit about what they're doing, actually, Mark Etheridge wrote a piece earlier this week about what they're working on with Gonzalez, because it's not an injury thing. They did not skip him because he was hurt. They used they used some of their technology, the Kinetrack stuff, to show that like his stride length was all out of whack. That like he was like stopping 6 inches short of where he was before. And so they basically took him off the mound for 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever it is to just like try to get that straightened out. And I guess they like where he's at. So they're going to give it last I heard, they're going to give it a go this weekend.
You know what? I was just going to ask you, Joe, about what's going on with Gonzalez, because I knew you would know. And then you just like, you jumped in front of the pass and you just took it all the way to the end zone. That was, listen, if you're not subscribing to SEC Extra, guys, what are you doing with your life? If you're an SEC fan, like, look at the knowledge here. Like, I'm sitting here like, I don't know what's going on. This guy, freaking, he's all over it. I'm just saying, that was awesome.
I jumped in front of that pass in a very like bird steals the ball kind of way.
Shout out Johnny Most. Well done.
Well done. That's well played.
Thank you.
Fitzy, can you take us to the ACC? Maybe we'll go rapid fire here. What's an ACC series of intrigue to you?
Yeah, let's go rapid fire a little bit here. Obviously, Clemson and Duke is kind of the marquee series, I think, in the ACC this weekend. It's like a kind of a bellwether series, right? Like, we've been talking up Duke. Like, I'm not even going to spend much time talking about Duke because I've talked a lot about Duke. I think they're for real, but like, I don't know what to think of Clemson. Like, Clemson's been great. I mean, like, are they also like in that? And I've been saying lately, it feels like that top tier now in the ACC. I think in the season we thought it was Wake Forest as the top tier, and then it's Clemson, Duke, and everybody else, and just kind of a muddle. Right now, my feeling is like maybe it's Wake, Clemson, and Duke in the top tier, and then there's that next group, and then there's, but like I'm curious. Like I don't really have a great feel for Clemson. They have the 2 wins against South Carolina, and other than that, the schedule is it hadn't learned a lot, but like it feels like they're pitching pretty darn well overall against, again, an overmatched schedule certainly, but so this is one where it's like, hey, listen, you don't just walk into Jack Coombs and the rowdy environment. Listen, I shouldn't make jokes, but it's not that daunting of a road series, But like Duke's good. That's what's daunting about it is Duke's really freaking good. But it's not like we're walking into the Lions' den here. I just think we'll learn a lot about these teams. I mean, I do feel like with Austin Gordon and Tristan Smith, you got a pretty good 1-2 punch there. Very talented duo for Clemson. And it just kind of feels like they're solid across the board. I don't know that they dazzle me in any phase, whereas like Duke does kind of dazzle me with their bullpen in particular. And I think that, Santucci was not good last week, but I think Santucci is dazzling. I don't know that Clemson has that kind of star power, that kind of like exceptional attribute in any particular area. I just think they're really solid across the board. Joe, again, you saw them. What do you think?
Talking about Clemson?
Yeah.
I think if you'd have told me before the year that they were going to have, Will Taylor was going to have 8 hits through like however many games, 15, 16 games, I'd have been like, uh-oh. The dude had funny stat. Dude has 5 home runs. They're all solo home runs. He's driven in no other runs. 5 home runs, 5 RBIs.
That's wild.
But otherwise, I'm. it's one of those teams that's kind of simultaneously hard to get your arms around, but also you feel good about, because on the mound, it's, I think I actually like Tristan Smith more than I thought I would. I do think he's got some real upside there. Is he Caden Grice? No, I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I don't think he's quite that. But he is very good. But with their pitching, they're just going to throw numbers at you. I mean, that's just kind of what they're doing. They're mixing and matching. So pack a lunch if Sunday ACC games involving Clemson. You might be there a while with the pitching changes, but offensively, it's just like a hand the baton kind of thing, which is a cliche, but they've done it really well. Where their lineup strikes me as one that, with a couple of exceptions, you're always going to want Canarell at the top, obviously, but everybody else you can like put them in a bag, shake it up, and just throw the tiles out, and like whatever lands is fine. And they've done a good job with transfers, Alden Mathis was a fine player at Richmond, and now he's hitting 400, for Clemson. Andrew Chufo from Georgetown, all he does is hit a walk-off home run against South Carolina. So it just seems like they've got those guys playing really, really well. And it's, go ahead. Yeah.
Can I just follow up on the Will Taylor thing? Like, he's got the weirdest stat line I've maybe ever seen in my life. He's hitting 195, but his OPS is 1060.
It's amazing
because he's got more walks than strikeouts, 13 walks, 9 strikeouts, and he's got those 5 home runs and 5 RBIs. I mean, it's wild.
And a triple, 5 home runs and a triple. 6 of his 8 hits have been triples or home runs.
I mean, what in the hell? What? It's just wild. Anyway, baseball's the best.
Hey, Joe, I have a follow-up question for you on Clemson. So I'm with you, Fitzy, on Duke. Like, when you're facing a team that has 3 monsters in their bullpen like that, I don't think players necessarily get intimidated, but I'll tell you, coaching against a team like that is very intimidating. You get to the 3rd or 4th inning and you're down 2-0. It feels like 100-0 because you just feel like it's going to take an exceptional occurrence for you to play better than that team in the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, right? Like, they're All-American, and they have 3 of them, by the way. One of them or 2 of them are going to have to stink for you to win the second half of the game. That's a hard way to live. Joe, the one thing that spooks me about Clemson a little bit is Cam Cannarella being banged up. Like, is he going to have to play hurt all year, or what is the nature of that? Not that you're his doctor, but
well, I have played one on TV, not his
treating
doctor,
physician, Dr. Healy.
Yeah, but yeah, a lot of DH for him. Now they tried it in center field against South Carolina, and the problem is his shoulder. And so there were a lot of situations where he'd run down a ball, and I know you want him in center field because he's got range. But the problem was, I mean, he was he on a deep fly ball to center could be a 2-base tag up because he can't throw. He's got to send it to, like, another outfielder has to play cutoff man to get it to the infield, or if he's close enough to their outfielder, he like flips it to them and they throw it in. Obviously, that's not optimal.
They should just get Manny Ramirez. Can they get that guy? And eligibility left.
Yeah,
dive in front of the cutoff.
diving cutoff.
Oh man,
that's one of the greatest plays in baseball history.
Seriously,
second only, by the way, to something else that happened at Fenway Park, the "Here Comes the Pizza" incident from 2007. That, of course, is the greatest play in baseball history.
The GOAT.
So great.
Here comes the pizza. But yeah, so because of, look, I mean, they're going to continue to hit him as they should, but that suggests to me, and again, I'm not a doctor, jokes aside, but it means there's not going to be a lot of opportunity for that shoulder to like totally get shut down. So it might just be a season of DH for Cam Cannarella. And again, I'm not doing any reporting there, but like that seems to stands to reason to me. But he's kind of a liability throwing wise, because he can run balls down, but it's almost like his range is so good that it makes his arm more of a liability because he's making catches like 385 feet away from the play. And so, I'm not sure what you do there because you need him in the lineup.
Very, Joe. So in the ACC, I'm going to force your hand here. Do you think, do you think the second most intriguing series of the weekend is Wake at Virginia, North Kakalaki at Miami, or other?
I was going to go other. I think it's Virginia Tech and Louisville. Virginia Tech's off to, and these are teams that I'm relatively ignorant on so far. And now we gawked at Louisville early in the season because they took some losses that were frankly inexcusable, but they've been hot lately. And now they had to work really hard to beat Lipscomb in the midweek. So like, it's still not pretty necessarily, but they're winning games. So you like that. They're playing a home series against Virginia Tech. Can you kind of keep that going and build some momentum? And on the other hand, is Virginia Tech's off to a really nice start, and that's a program that I think Aaron and I are in the same boat. Like, we really liked last year's team, and then it just didn't happen. And then so this year kind of cooled on them a little bit, like the individual talents, but we're like, okay, what do we really have here? And now they're playing well. So I think we're going to feel pretty good about one of these teams coming out of it. And then on the opposite side, the team that loses this series, it's going to be kind of a little bit of a reality check of, okay, is this, for Louisville, is this more of the same? Is this team really better than they were the first couple of weeks of the season? And then for Virginia Tech, is this team kind of just the same thing we saw in 2023?
Yep. Virginia Tech has a freshman arm, Brett Renfro, that is like Drew Hackenberg reincarnate. It's different stuff. It's not power sinker slider. It's more like crazy four-seamer at the top of the zone, 94 to 96. But Brett Renfro is a freshman with ridiculous numbers. And I'm really curious to see what that looks like this week against Louisville, where, we know Louisville can speed up a freshman arm, right? They are whether they get 10 hits or not is not always the issue with Louisville. It's just the constant threat of the running game and extra bases, and they make your life very difficult. I will, in fact, take Virginia at Wake Forest. I think the two players are this. Chase Burns is not losing, I don't think. I think Chase Burns is going to win his start.
Yep.
So Josh Hartle is the key person on Wake Forest roster right now. If he wins, then Wake Forest goes into the Chase Burns start feeling like, hey, there's a series win right here. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Wake. They're fascinating. The best version of them is going to be very, very good. But Josh Hartle, if he beats Virginia, that will be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia, I don't know who to pick because I don't know who's going to pitch for them. Like, is it Evan Blanco? Is it Cullen McKay, who was really more the midweek guy? Jay Woolfolk's got 3 starts and a 7 ERA. Jack O'Connor's got 3 starts and a 9.4 ERA. So I'm going to say Virginia's rotation. What does that look like outside of I think Evan Blanco gives them a chance to win, but you might need more than a chance to win this weekend, right? Like, if Evan Blanco matches up with Chase Burns, they don't need quality start. They need, like, you better really deal. So
Wake is not going to lose many Chase Burns starts this year. Like, I was at the over under.
I'm with you.
0.5. Like, that guy is absurd.
Yeah,
he's absurd. And I don't know that I would take the over on 0.5. Like, it's just a different level, guys. I will say this quickly about Hartle. I thought last week, like, he got squared up. He gave up 11 hits, and a lot of them were hard contact, but, like, the stuff is still good. Like, I walked away thinking, like, they were, Duke was just on them, and they had a great approach, and, like, you kind of tip your cap, but, like, I have a strong feeling Hartle bounces back strong this week. I just think, like, he's tough. Like, it's a tough look, and Duke just stacked the lineup with 8 right-handed hitters. They've got it right up on the plate. Took away that cutter. Moose and those guys are going to make an adjustment. I suspect that he's going to be good, and I hear that Wake is going TBA on Sunday, so that'll be interesting too. Curious to see what they do with their rotation. I think I already said on a different show this week, I think Wake's best configuration is with, like, if Hayden LeFew, the freshman lefty, can win that Sunday spot, and he can put Massey back in the bullpen as just a dude. Like,
yep.
I love Massey, whether it's 2 or 3 inning guy, whether it's moment of truth stopper, whatever. I love him as a stopper. I'm not sold on him as a starter right now, but I think LeFew has a chance to do that. So we'll see what they do on Sunday. That'll be fascinating.
Yep. I'm with you. I think the best version of Wake, the version that could, do damage at the end of the year, is Michael Massey's back in the pen. It's just like a real weapon. Hey, boys, let's do the Big 12 and the Pac-12 together. And we don't have to go in order. Let's just kind of do it as a team. Go ahead, Fitzy.
Can I do one more thing? Because we've got a comment here. Calling me out. Okay. Cougar Intruder says, #play somebody. Am I right, Aaron? Top 10 dub rank us. I think we're referring to the Seminoles here. And listen, let me be the first to welcome Florida State fans back. Guys, we missed you. Like, I feel like, obviously last year was a disaster, but the year before, several years before that, I was probably the high man on the Seminoles, and all the FSU fans were like, we're going to grumble about our Seminoles. I'm glad they're back. I like this team a lot. I'm glad they finally beat somebody. They they did. They beat Florida. Good for them. I'm happy for them. They're going to probably beat up Notre Dame this weekend. And then they'll probably be in the rankings because they're talented. They're a lot better than they were last year. Cam Smith has taken the leap that I told everyone he's going to take. He's my breakout player in the country this year. He's been awesome. That lighter, Arnold, who's the third lefty and the second lefty in that rotation. It's been good. The rotation's been good. And I think they're for real. I really do. And I look forward to having them in the top 25. They'll be here soon.
Yeah, I like it. This is the second podcast in a row, by the way. Somebody impersonated the Knowles fan base. Kendall did a beauty the other day. He did something like "Respect the Knowles" or something. It was gorgeous. I got to find that clip. It was awesome. By the way, boys, let's take a quick break. Hear from our sponsors. We'll come back with the Big 12. In 3, 2, and 1. All right, boys, I'm going to speak for the group. In the Big 12, I see one series of intrigue. That series of intrigue is Oklahoma going to TCU. There's a bunch of nice series in the league this weekend, but it's not really the meat of the schedule yet. Even though Texas played at Texas Tech last weekend, OU swept UCF. They've got a win over Tennessee. I mean, OU's got a win over Nebraska too, I think. So the best version of OU is a very fascinating team. We just haven't gotten it every time out. And so this is TCU's coming off their first series loss of the weekend. You guys see anything else in there, or is that's really the series in the Big 12?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, looking at Oklahoma, I was struck by the fact that Aaron might have been a year early on the John Spikerman train. He's hitting above 400, on base percentage is close to 500. He's stolen 9 bases already.
I told you it was coming, Joe. Why don't you listen to me?
Just listen.
I mean, yeah, I mean, the numbers were what they were last year. I don't want to be mean, but the interesting thing about Oklahoma is I'd be curious to kind of hear them talk about kind of where they're at offensively, because there was a lot of emphasis going into last season about how much of an action-oriented offense they were going to be, and they're just going to totally, and they use that the chaos moniker, right? But that's not really what they're doing. I mean, they've got 25 stolen bases as a team, and 9 of those are Spikerman. So you've got 16 to the rest of the team through, roughly that many number of games. Now, it's not to say they can't turn that up a little bit as time goes on, but typically, how these things go, power conference teams, their numbers tend to be kind of like exaggerated early and then kind of shrink back as you get into the teeth of your conference. So I don't know. I'll be interested to see I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing, because their offense has been good this year. But I am kind of, I guess I'm just surprised that this is the way they're having success, as opposed to what we were kind of sold going into last year.
Fair. Boys, let's do the big, or not the Big 12. We just did the Big 12. Let's do the Pac-12. Let's do the Packaronian 12, as the great Jake Mintz would say. What fire away? What looks intriguing in the Pac-12? I got a couple on my dance.
I mean, I'll jump in quickly because Runes, I'm sure you've got the more interesting ones there. We've got several beeves in our chat here. We've got some. I was going to call them angry beavers, not necessarily angry. They're just happy to be here and rooting on their team. But somebody mentioned, Connor Johnson, who checks in actually on my weekend waypoints periodically. When Oregon State was playing Arkansas, he jumped in, even though it's an SEC thing. But he said Utes are up to 24 in RPI. Are we using that yet? The short answer is no on that, Connor. Now, Runes and I have talked about, I think Runes and I have adopted a relatively pro-Utah posture this year, and kind of like the cut of their jib, to use an Aaron Fitt phrase. What I will say, though, with Utah's RPI is that it's going to get better this weekend because they're playing Oregon State. I don't think it's going to hold, though. This Friday game against Oregon State is literally their first home game this season. And that's why their RPI is where it's at. They've won a bunch of road games, but they only have 2 wins against a team in the RPI top 100, and it's Cal Baptist, and that's not going to last. Cal Baptist is probably a good team, but they're not going to have a good RPI when it's all said and done. So I think this is just kind of your classic ton of road games with a good record type of RPI thing. I'm not saying their RPI won't be good, but their RPI right now is not something we should pay a whole lot of attention to. And look, I mean, obviously we're all going to pick Oregon State to win that series, but like that's a tricky place to go. It's like it's a big minor league ballpark that has like a not as much atmosphere, right? So it's kind of cavernous and quiet, and so it is not the easiest place to necessarily play because there's a little bit of an uncanny valley thing that happens there. But so could be a little bit of a tricky spot for Oregon State, but certainly we all like the Beavers enough. I don't expect that to be a big time trouble spot for them.
And no Aiden May for Oregon State. I saw on Twitter. So that is that's something to continue to watch and monitor. I'll just go. Arizona State going to Arizona. Man, I mean, Fitzy, you said it many times. Arizona has been very good this year, better than was expected, and Arizona State's been injured and disappointing. Connor Markle, their Saturday starter, did not pitch last weekend. New Contradas is out for the foreseeable future. That's a big loss. He's an incredible defender at third baseman and a really streaky offensive player. So, I picked Arizona to win that series, and I don't know how you pick Arizona State right now. Arizona State's 7-9, and Any other series jump out to you, Fitzy?
Yeah, I think this Cal Oregon series to me is intriguing. I keep picking against Cal and getting burned, and you would think at one point I would just be like, you know what, I'm going to pick Cal because I like Cal. I do. I like their players. Obviously you got some star power there, Lomovita and Green. We've talked about these guys, but I like Oregon too, and I think on the road, I kind of think the Ducks are a pretty good club. I don't love their pitching still. Besides RJ Gordon, who I think is a perfectly cromulent Friday guy, not like a dominant Friday guy, but cromulent certainly. It feels like they can kind of piece it together on the mound, but I do think they're a pretty physical offensive team, and maybe Cal is just better. But I think I'm picking Oregon here, but I feel like we're going to learn a lot from this series. I don't know, it's early yet, but I feel like after Oregon State, it feels like Cal and Oregon are the next two teams in some order, and so this feels like one of the more interesting series probably on the whole season schedule in the pack for me.
Yep, so weird that Southern Cal and Stanford is a series that just doesn't grab you. It's just right.
USC stinks. It's sad, but they stink.
4-12, and Stanford's only 8-7, and this is going to be interesting. The Fitzy, another team name for you to put on the board put in the workshop is the cromulent diasporas. It's a lot of syllables, but
sounds like a disease.
That's right.
I don't want that.
Two amazing words. Boys, let's wrap with a wild card. Let me give you 6 options. We mentioned Sunbelt play opens this weekend, which is awesome. Upstart JMU is going to Coastal. JMU has a win at Arkansas. They've off to a great start. So JMU at Coastal. Indiana State at Xavier, I think, is kind of intriguing to me. Long Beach State is off to a great start. They're at UC Santa Barbara. Maryland, boys, is 13-4.
Yeah.
And they're going to Portland, who just, I think, ran Oregon State off the field. No, Oregon. They just bombed Oregon, I think. Nichols, your Fighting Colonels, are 17-3, and they're going to Nebraska, who's off to a great start. Wow. And Cal Baptist also off to a good start. They're playing UConn, who has now beaten Irvine and UCLA on the road in back-to-back games. So UConn starting to get their sea legs underneath of them. So Cal Baptist at UConn, Nichols at Nebraska, Maryland at Portland, Long Beach at Santa Barbara, Indiana State at Xavier, JMU at Coastal. Joe, what jumps out at you?
I'll go with JMU and Coastal, because I'm with you, Runes. I've kind of noticed JMU continuing to play well. And when they played Arkansas opening weekend on the SEC side of things, on Arkansas side, there was a lot of worry about, because you remember Hagen Smith had a bad start that weekend too, which of course turned out to be nothing. But they also lost a game that weekend and had to work pretty hard. And I kind of jokingly, I think at one point said, well, maybe we'll find out JMU's good. But, since then they've also beaten Virginia Tech, a team we've talked about here. So that wasn't the only quality win they've gotten. I think we'll learn a lot this weekend. Obviously, Coastal's on a different different level. And this series is in Conway, so that helps. But apparently JMU is just going to be good at every sport now. Because their football team is what it is. Their basketball team just punched their ticket to the March Madness. Their men's team, and their baseball team's off to a really good start. So I guess it's just the world we live in now. So congrats to the Dukes on being good at every sport.
I know the secret sauce for the Dukes, Joe. Where I grew up in suburban Philly, JMU was quite the popular school because at the time the student population for JMU, it was 2 girls for every 1 guy.
Yep.
And a very attractive student population. And so I had several friends from suburban Philly that went to JMU. And I want to tell you they went there for a specific major, but that would be lying to you.
I will tell you that my alma mater was similar, at least at the time, 25 years ago or whatever, when I applied. It was like 60. University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill was like more than 60% women for sure.
No way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How about them apples? By the way, Matthew Parks in the comments, I see you, and I will say this out loud for anyone listening. Go check out USM, Southern Miss's Twitter feed. They have this thing with their lights when they hit a home run. It's kind of one of those newfangled disco things. It is awesome. Like there's a phrase for it where the lights go crazy. I don't know what it's called, but it's super cool. It is worth your time. Steven Schock also retweeted it.
Yeah.
And he's a good follow. Fitzy, who do you like in the wild cards?
Well, I think if you listen to probably our Monday show this week, you heard me saying that UConn is like the best 3-9 team you'll ever, I was saying that beating UConn, if you're Santa Barbara, is a quality series win or sweep, because I still think UConn is going to be there. Like it started terribly. And now look at them, guys, like just like that, you beat Santa Barbara, you beat Irvine, 2 top 25 teams. And now you got Cal Baptist, which I think is a real test. I mean, Cal Baptist is good. You keep saying it, Runes, like you're all about these guys. The Lancers are I think, a real club. They just beat USC again this week. But like if UConn, if they're going to be the kind of contender that I still believe they can be, that series is important, and again, I don't think they're going to probably wind up being an at-large team based on the way they started the season, but like this feels like a good measuring stick for UConn.
Yep, I love it. I'm going to go with Nichols. I'm pulling them up right now. They're 17-3.
Yeah.
Now they've played Sacred Heart. They did lose to Tulane. They've played Eastern Illinois. They have a win over Southern Miss. They have 3 wins over Southern. I'm not familiar with Southeastern Baptist's work. They did play Grambling. They've played Dillard. So it is a very unique schedule, but they're well coached, and they were in a regional last year and showed well. I thought they didn't look overmatched by any stretch in that regional. And Nebraska, if you made me pick a team to bet on in the Big Ten right now, like I'm kind of thinking about picking Nebraska. Like they're the team that has played the best so far, or at least showed the least cracks. So all very interesting, but. I think Nebraska and Nichols is interesting. Go ahead, Fitzy.
And if you're interested, in reading about some of these teams that we've been talking about, I mean, gosh, our guy Patrick Ebert has a piece up right now on Nebraska and their good start. Our guy Mark Etheridge, not just SEC Extra, and he's not a one-trick pony, friends. He's got a piece up right now on Southern Miss. If you do care about the SEC, Kendall Rogers has his SEC primer heading into the year. Of course, you can find a lot more in the SEC at SEC Extra. Our friend Joe Healy. There's a lot of stuff right now on the site, guys, and I just wanted to put a plug in for that. And Eric Sorensen, of course, with his ranking the West piece, he's got his next column on the way as well. So a lot of stuff. Check us out.
I need to get on there and check out the new forum. I have not done that. Have you guys jumped into the forum yet? The community page? Kendall put a little scoop action in there. I need to get in there. That's just new this week. So
yeah,
and I'm looking at Kendall's feed right now for a coupon. So do this. When you check out, there's one of 2 things that could work for you. 24 season is one thing that typically works. 24 season, that'll get you some type of discount. Angry Beeves, type that in there. See what the website thinks about that. Angry Beeves. Can't go wrong there. And also Fabulous Rune Dogs are in fact in first place. Try that, type that in there and see what kind of discount that gets you. So That's it. Fitzy, you are in the Mississippi's. Joseph, where are you going this weekend?
I'm home this weekend. I'll be trying to monitor as much of the SEC opening weekend as I can.
What's your number of screens, Joe? What do you like to go one and be locked in, or do you go multiple?
I go two. There's a primary screen and a secondary screen that I can kind of swap around, and I'm willing to switch them around. But if we've got one game really coming down to the wire, I'll just lock in on that one. But good weekend to have multiple screens going though in the SEC.
Yeah, amen. I actually have my first game of the year. I got Louisville at Virginia Tech today, or Sunday. I got game 3. So excited for that. Talked to Coach Mack and Coach Chef today with the great Clay Matvick. His nickname, for those people that don't know, Big Sizzle, Big Sizz, if you will.
That's good
He's
stuff.
the best. Yes, Clay, one of the greatest Americans.
I think Papa Bear, Kyle Peterson, also has an ACC game this weekend, doesn't he? Wake Forest and UVA.
That sounds right. And Chris from Louisville, a friend of the program, he's got Alabama, Tennessee this weekend.
Oh, there we go. I can't believe it. He's getting the Vols. Didn't see that coming.
What game am I on? Did I get assigned? What am I?
Not yet, Joe.
The reviews were pouring in positively for my work in Jacksonville with Darren Vaught. Now he carried me through it. I'm not going to lie to you guys.
Yes.
I'm not here to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. However, look, there's got to be a Scottie Pippen to everyone's Michael Jordan, and so I'm just kind of along for the ride. But I kind of assumed there'd be assignments coming. I'm willing to wait. I'm not, I'm not antsy about it. I just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss an email.
Get yourself in the mix, Joe. Let's go. Let's get you on the docket. Get you on the.
I am extremely available.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all? Very good. Gentlemen, enjoyed it. Happy Thursday. Who knew it was Thursday? Weekend starts tomorrow. Everyone enjoy week 5, the opening of the Fun Belt and the SEC, where it just means moss. And that is it. Enjoy. We will catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.